I don't even know where
Good to see you, pal.
You too, man.
Back at it.
Yes, we
Yeah,
are.
so we're a couple days after former President of the United States has been indicted. Or I guess he's supposed to be indicted. How's that work?
He was
notified?
Yeah, he was indicted. The arraignment, I think, is scheduled for Tuesday, because it's a grand jury, so the charges are under seal right now. So they indicted him, and then they won't arrest him. I'm sure he'll come in. They'll arrange
Tuesday.
him processing, and then they'll give the formal arraignment, and he'll put in his plea. And then from there, it's I'm really curious what the charges are. We don't know. There's a lot of speculation what the charges are, if it relates to the supposed hush money payments from like fucking 5-6 years ago, which I think they're past. This is all political, in my opinion. I
couldn't agree with you more. How could it not be?
And I don't think they understand what it's doing. Like a lot of people, and I've spoken to people about this on the left and the right, and I think what is happening is people are looking at this as this is the elites versus everyone else. And if you don't feel like you're part of the elite, you're starting to have concern, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, when you see something like this happen, because and that's what I think is going to backfire. Like you see these people that are just like, people are starting to question, like, what the fuck? Like look at all the shit they put this dude through. The Russia collusion, raiding Mar-a-Lago, every possible thing you could do this, man, they've tried to do. And now they're indicting him on some bullshit charges, supposedly. For what? Yeah. Because he's not part of the system.
Nope.
And he wants to tear the system down. And they fear him. Look at all the shit these other politicians have done. And the fact that fucking Nancy Pelosi went on Twitter. Did you see this? She went on Twitter last night.
No.
And
celebrating?
Basically saying, no one is above the law. I hope the former president follows the rule of law or something, and he will get a chance to prove his innocence in court. It's like, that's not how the fucking system works. You're innocent until proven guilty. It's their job to prove his fucking guilt. But she goes on Twitter and says he'll have a chance to prove his innocence. Then Twitter went fucking crazy. Like even people on Twitter, and Twitter itself was like, that's wrong, misinformation. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, she literally, the former Speaker of the House has a large following, who's out of her fucking mind, went on there and said,
but that's all the proof you need to know.
That's it. Exactly.
Anyone that's paying attention, that's the proof, right?
That's exactly right.
Alvin Bragg doing campaigning for the DA slot that he ran for.
Yep.
Talked about getting Trump. Talked about he's running on the platform that he's the guy that can get Trump convicted.
Yeah.
And all the video is there. Like, how can that not be used to disqualify the indictment?
Well,
how's that work?
I don't know. So it'll be interesting to see, because I don't think, again, we don't know what the charges are.
Yeah. There has to be at least one felony, though,
yes,
right?
To convene a grand jury, it has to be a felony charge, right? So, but the rest of them could be misdemeanors. The other thing they were talking about is, are they going to look at every little transaction as a separate crime, as a separate count, or as a separate charge? Like, it's so fucking crazy. They've been investigating this since 2018.
And it's been turned down by federal prosecutors.
Yes. So I don't know. Like, I'm going to be really curious to see the actual charges that are brought. And
I thought federal, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought federal officials, whether in service or out, can only be charged by the federal court system. Is that right or wrong?
Well, it depends. So I think these are state law crimes they're charging him for, because the things happened in New York. I don't think, and again, like, I don't think it deals with federal election campaign laws. I think it deals with payments happened in New York as part of an investigation or something.
So look at the floodgates it opens. Okay, think about this. So you have a liberal state, a blue state. I shouldn't say liberal. Let's say a blue state, New York, that takes a decision to go after the Republican ex-president. Now, doesn't that open up the same kind of tit-for-tat bullshit in red states that may look at national figures that are blue and start investigating and doing deep dives on them to see what they can find?
The difference is that's never going to happen. Republicans won't do that. I don't think Republicans, because they don't play those games. And again, I'm not trying to make this political, but I don't think. Like, I look at the Democrats do this shit when they're going to lose, or when someone, challenges their power. Republicans just do what they got to do. And yes, they don't do everything right. I'm not saying that at all, but I don't think...
It's a different mentality. It's a conservative mentality versus a liberal mentality.
Exactly. Right. That's exactly right. It's a different mentality. And they're not going to just go after someone because a blue state did it. They typically follow the rules of the law. But now they might.
I mean, think about so again, this is 100-mile away bullshit here, but it does seem really interesting to me that we're hearing the public is hearing so much of potential crimes in from this Hunter Biden investigation. Like all these different things are out there.
No shit.
But nothing happens. Like nothing happens. Again, and this is dealing with China. This is dealing with standard. It's unbelievable, though. It's unbelievable.
Right. And that's the problem. And that's what I think people are waking up to. I think people are starting to see this double standard, and it's not about blue or red anymore. It's about elite versus non-elite. And they're looking at it. If you are not in the elite, you are vulnerable. The same rules don't apply. Like if you look, think about Clinton, the dossier. Proven the DNC paid for it. Fucking completely made up. They paid a fine. That was it. No one got charged for anything. Okay? No one got charged for anything. I think Hunter Biden, it's been pretty much proven money from China went to that whole fucking family. Nothing's been done. And then we're talking about something that happened years ago, which is supposed hush money payments, which we don't even know what that means or if they are, to some porn star that he supposedly had an affair with. Wasn't a foreign government. It was literally a woman he had an affair with. And we're giving it this much attention. All they're trying to do is take this guy out because they fear that if he gets back into it, the entire building will burn. And if he gets back in the office, he's going to burn the entire fucking system down. How does this work? Like,
if this... So, correct me if I'm wrong, this case could take a year to litigate?
It could take more than that, yeah.
2 years? And subsequently, any other indictment, maybe the same exact thing.
They'll file a motion to dismiss immediately. His attorneys will file that. Once they do the plea, they'll plead not guilty. The first process will be they'll file a motion to dismiss.
Well, the New York judge will never let that happen.
If the law is on the side, I feel like you kind of got to. The
so if that happened, then what does that do to brag?
Makes him look like a fucking bumbling idiot.
But how does he keep his? I am really just.
It's an elected official. That's the thing, though. You can't just fire the guy, right? He's got to be not reelected. That's the problem.
That's a weird thing. The district attorney is a public official.
Yeah,
elected, and that is because. The idea behind that is...
I don't know, honestly. I
to keep the mayor from appointing that position, maybe, and then having some collusion there.
Maybe. I don't know the underlying intention behind that system or why that was done that way. I just know the DA is an elected position. Then they hire all the assistant district attorneys, right? The ones that are actually prosecuting cases. The DA is the figurehead, and they take the big cases. It's always the ADAs that are doing the actual work.
Well, the argument too is you expand this a little bit. If he does a jury trial, if he gets that far, can he find an impartial jury of his peers in New York?
Well, I think that's an argument they'll make. They'll make that argument. They'll try and move the venue potentially. Or take a jury pool from outside New York. It would be hard to get an impartial jury, honestly.
And this thing can continue to get. The can get kicked down the road for a long time on this.
Depends on the problem. The discovery process is X amount of time, but if they file motions to dismiss, extend discovery. We have a case right now though. It's been in a year and we're still in discovery that we're handling. So it's.
Meanwhile, he's running for president of the United States, and he might actually encounter his election for that office before any of this stuff is even settled.
Correct. Yeah.
So then what happens if he becomes president? Can he then have an executive order and dismiss himself?
I don't think because you can't. I don't think you can do that with a state crime. That's the whole federal, state and federal law. So it's a state. If it was a federal crime, maybe he could pardon himself. So this is a state law crime.
What about the House of Representatives demanding that Bragg appear? What's going to happen from that?
I don't know. I can't remember what they're demanding him to appear for.
Because they're demanding him to appear and explain
He doesn't have to.
About the question of using federal money. He's in his investigation of
that's different. So if that is the case,
that's the premise of it.
Yeah, if that is the case, and they have proof of that, then I think he would.
Bragg admitted he spent $5,000 of federal money. He put that out there.
Yeah, so I think that could get him in a little bit of trouble. I think I don't know the rules well enough to intelligently pontificate on that. But I think if there is some level of federal mischief, I think he would have to appear under a subpoena and testify in front of the House, which I would fucking hope.
If the House representatives decided to call me to testify for whatever reason, am I obligated? Do I have to go?
It depends on the type of subpoena, right? They could be asking you to come, or they can be demanding you to come under some law, and it all depends, right? It depends on what what the reasoning is. Sometimes they'll just ask people to appear to testify on, it's not a subpoena per se, it's a written request.
Is it a legal proceeding?
It depends. Again, it depends. Like sometimes they are, sometimes they're just informational hearings. They're trying to gather information to then maybe proceed legally with something. There's so many different pieces to it.
It's interesting.
Yeah. Like I would love to know, I would love to be the expert on that, but it's like,
I understand.
It's just like when I think I understand the rules, I'm like, nope, I don't fucking understand the rules because they just changed.
When you hear the talking heads mention that this is leading us down a slippery slope, what essentially are they referring to? Like from a legal standpoint, it's just the
malicious
thing?
Prosecution in my mind.
Okay,
like this is the first time a president or former president has ever been indicted, and
the current running for office, the to boot.
Right, and on charges that were potentially from acts that happened beyond the statute of limitations. This is, in my mind, a political power grab. It is politically motivated. And I think the slippery slope is if this shit happens, this is the whole point of the people are waking up, elites versus non. I read something yesterday. I can't remember where I saw it. It wasn't like on Fox or CNN. It was a blog. I can't remember it. It was talking about, and this guy articulated this really good explanation. And it was truly about, this is not about Republicans and Democrats anymore. It's like, this is about everyday Americans versus the untouchables. And the fact that, Trump is a billionaire, but Trump spoke to the everyday Americans. Yeah. Yes, he pissed off a lot of people, and people fucking liked him, then hated him, and people are so vehemently against him right now. But I think when they did something like this, everybody, the majority of people are looking at it, wait a minute, what the fuck? And that's where I think the fear is starting to set in, and I think that's going to backfire.
It is
really going to backfire. I truly believe that.
The argument can be made on the other side of that, though, is even if you don't like what's happening to him, because of his character, if he somehow legally has this dismissed and is elected, he is then going to try to burn it down. He's going
to go.
The vindictive nature, it just continues to back and forth.
And that's the problem. That's the fear. Because look, did I vote for Trump? Yes. Do I like Trump? Yes. Do I like everything about him? No. Like, I get he's an asshole.
Well, there's no perfect candidate.
Never has been, never will be. I look at it purely from a policy perspective.
So do I.
I look at where our country is today, or where it was when he was in office.
Yep. Can't deny that.
You can't deny it.
No, you can't deny
if
that.
Someone wants to argue that,
they try.
Like, you see all these people, like, and again, like, I follow some of these people online, people that have been on this podcast before, and
I think I know the ones you're referring to.
and they're looking for a way to make it sound like Biden is the best. And I listen to them talk, and I'm like, you don't have a fucking
If
clue.
you feel that way, you must be out of your goddamn mind.
Because here's the thing, it's like we're still talking about Trump. Like, it's 2023. It's 3 years into a presidency.
But they've got nothing to talk about.
Right, because they can't. Biden comes down after the school shooting and is like, I'm down here for ice cream. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, are you fucking kidding me?
I think the world watched that on both networks, CNN and Fox, live streaming
that
particular moment, waiting for him to talk on the shooting.
Yes.
and it was a good 7 minutes, I think.
Yeah,
or
roughly
something
6,
like
7
that.
minutes, yeah, yes.
Yeah, where he talked about first off he looked like he was in a fog.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't. He
said, "I'm Joe Biden's husband."
Yeah, the first thing he said.
Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, okay, like I get your maybe that's respect you give your wife, which is cool, but there's a major tragedy that just happened. Like, you come down and you be a strong president. Like, I want regardless of who it is.
He doesn't know what that means or how to articulate that.
That's the problem.
I mean, the Joe Biden of 10, 15 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, I think he would have got up there and said, like, this is a tragedy. You know, he would have addressed the nation appropriately. Because, again, like, I think he used to be a smarter man. You know, I think he was moderate. I think, I never hated the guy at all. Like, I thought, okay, like, he was Joe Biden.
He had a history of lying and embellishing public about his own merits.
Of course.
And he's had some whoppers. He's been caught in some whoppers. But outside of that stuff, he was like a pretty. I mean, it is interesting to see how things change. Like he's on record of a CBS interview on Face the Nation. I want to say late 90s or early 2000s, talking about marriage and talking about marriages between a man and a woman. We have laws for this, and he goes, and that's just the facts, and that's the way it should be. And they can see the crazy swing. And I think that's where we lose faith in these politicians is when they govern by polls. They govern by the flavor of the day instead of being principled. I mean, if you change your mind, explain to me why you've changed your mind and how you came to that decision.
Correct.
Whether it was a moral issue, whether we saw something that opened your eyes. We never get that.
Yeah.
We just get the campaign rhetoric based upon being principled. I mean, I've always been a moderate right, so I understood conservative principles. Didn't always agree with them all, but I understood them. But I would also respect liberal principles if they were consistent. Like, you can say what you want about Bernie Sanders. He's pretty much very principled in what he believes.
Yeah,
does not deviate.
No, very consistent. Yes.
So you can see people that share similar views like that consistency.
That's all,
It's believable.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
And if you're not consistent, explain it. Like, my views have changed over my adult life.
We need to,
and because I'm open to it, and I listen. And if someone can convince me otherwise, like again, I used to be a lot more of a staunch conservative. I lean more middle right now. I'm more libertarian because I'm like, okay, there are certain things like I don't have the right to tell people what to do.
Amen.
I do have a belief that when it comes to taxation and fiscal responsibility, we need to do better as a country. But when it comes to social issues, like I don't believe my morals are better than someone else's.
Live and let live, man.
Yeah, like I wasn't, put on this earth to tell somebody else what to do other than my kids until they can tell me what to do. But I think, and that's the problem. You get these politicians that again flip with the polls, and all of a sudden, they're just doing what's popular.
The man that I think is exhibiting that the most right now is Gavin Newsom. If you go back and look just the past 5 to 10 years, it's like if there's a politician today that floats with polls or public opinion or assumed public opinion, and now that you see him trying to expand on a national
he's a fucking
front,
snake. If you look at him, he just looks like a fucking snake.
I just don't know how he's on the national stage. I really don't.
I don't know.
I mean, that's California does not generally translate to the rest of the country.
No,
what goes
not
on,
at all.
It just doesn't. Same kind of goes for Oregon and Washington. It's a different animal out there.
100%.
Yeah, things. At least today it is. I mean, you had Reagan came from that as a Republican came from that decades ago, but it was a different world then.
Yeah, I don't know how he has risen to the national stage like he has. I think he's playing off his charisma, so to speak, and he's younger, and but I think he'd get fucking annihilated on a debate stage. I think he would be a laughingstock, in my opinion. Like what he's done for California. California's a fucking shithole right now.
Disaster.
People are leaving. Leaving California.
And besides that, just look at crime and homelessness and rampant drug use. I mean, how could we possibly look at that state as a beacon of anything?
We went to the show last night, and one of the opening acts was talking about it. He's like, yeah, he's like he moved to California, but he left and he's in Texas. He's like, California, he's like, it's this enigma. He's like, you turn one way and it's like a beautiful sunset with a purple sky. I turn around behind me and there's a guy trying to take a shit in a Mountain Dew bottle on the street. And he's like, this is California. And he's like, no one's doing anything about it.
San Francisco is just supposed to be
ridiculous,
insanely bad right now.
Yes, I mean it's completely
Portland,
ridiculous.
Oregon. I mean, it's like,
and here's my thing. Like, look, I love this country. Like, I'm not one of those like I have American flags everywhere, but I think I've been around the world. I love this country. Mm-hmm. I love all the people in this country. I love the fact that we can have different opinions. I love the fact that we can debate things and we can believe different things. Where I see our problem as a nation is we have got to the point where it's my belief or no belief.
Right. Absolutes.
And we're constantly looking to fight and point fingers instead of solving problems. And we need leaders to step up and say, I'm okay with differing opinions. I'm here to solve problems. And we don't have to agree. You don't even have to personally like me. But we are in charge of 330 million people, and we need to do what's best for the whole. And we need to find a way to come to a solution that maybe doesn't solve it for 330 million people, but maybe 200 million people.
Yep.
And then we learn to live within.
Well, we rule by majority, right? And when you say that, it does not mean in any way, shape, or form that the minority groups in this country, whether they're, and I'm not talking explicitly by race, I'm talking about religion, whatever the minority groups are in all demographics, they shouldn't be persecuted. This isn't like Rome in the the 300s, right? 300 AD.
Yeah, right.
But at the same time, for decision making purposes, we tend to do what the majority,
but that's not what we're doing.
Agrees upon.
Right, but now we're doing what the loudest want.
Correct.
That's how we're governing.
We can't govern that way.
No, we're governing.
We can't run society that way.
No, because I truly believe. Look. We've said this 100 times on this podcast. 80% of us are all kind of the same. Like, you came to our event the other night, right?
Yeah.
Group of different people from different walks of life, different business owners.
Yep.
We probably all have different political views. Everyone's in a room getting along there to help one another and to network.
Yeah.
I feel like that's fucking America. But then you have these people on the far left and the far right that are super fucking loud and have these ridiculous opinions, and they're trying to govern to those people.
And if
that's not the majority,
and they want to burn it down.
Yes.
If it isn't their way, which they know they're never going to get absolute agreement.
Right. It was funny. Like, I watched a video after the whole school shooting because it was a trans person, right? I think they identified as they them who did the killing, and I was watching this trans person did this video, and they were losing it, and they said, "I would give up my right to marry to save kids," and because they were talking about how like the trans population is doing it to themselves. But instead of just learning to live within society and take things step by step, they're like kicking and screaming and forcing things on people. And when it doesn't go their way, they do shit like this. And they were like, for what? Like, for what? And this person, they were like, I would give up my right to marry my partner to save kids. And I'm like, it was like such a heartfelt message.
Most people are good human beings.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's it. Like, we are all good. We all have good inside. It's like, we've got to fix the mental health problems in this country. We've got to address certain things, but we also can't rule by who has the loudest voice. It's not how it works, because you and I are part of that majority, and we're not loud. Like, I don't really. There's not much in my life that I lose my shit about. I kind of live within society, within the rules of society. I kind of learn to operate within.
Right.
If something doesn't go my way, okay. If inflation's up, okay, I just adjust, right? Mm-hmm. Gas prices are up, food prices are up. You learn to adjust, right? Mm-hmm. I don't kick and scream. If a law doesn't get passed that I want, I don't kick and scream. But you have these people that do, and then the politicians are like, well, we got to fucking, the day after a shooting, we got to make a trans day now. Mm-hmm. I'm like, how about give the country time to fucking mourn? Like, are you kidding me?
But how does Trans Day solve?
It doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't solve it.
It's like that doesn't. I mean, gun legislation doesn't solve the problem.
No, the places in this country that have the strictest gun laws have the most crime.
Yeah, it's
I read a study that we're talking about. I can't remember. There was like a bunch of different counties and around Chicago, couple other ones that had like background, like the strictest gun laws. They have the highest gun violence in those places.
Why are we afraid to lay blame on criminals? We're not laying blame on the people that do the bad things. We're finding other reasons why they must. I mean, if they had their right mind, they just wouldn't do such a thing. Well, some people are just organically bad.
Yeah.
And we just don't want to admit that.
Yeah. And again, like I always say, like, look, do I believe there should be gun laws? Yes. Do I believe, there should be some background checks and searches?
I agree with that.
Absolutely.
Right there with you.
I'm not saying that anybody should go be able to buy a gun. Like, I believe in the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is there for a purpose, to overthrow a tyrannical government. Like, that's what my belief is of the Constitution. Right. That's why the founding fathers put that in place, because they are not going to allow the people to be overtaken by a government if the government is bad.
Around the world, you can see examples of it.
Correct. However, we can have rules in place, right? We can have, checks in place, right? But we have to address the fundamental issues. Sometimes there are just fucking criminals. There are just bad people. We have mental health problems. Removing guns will not stop crime. Criminals are still criminals. They'll get a fucking car and drive it through the school. Like, that's what people don't want to talk about. It's like, we have to start passing blame, or not passing blame, but addressing the real issue. There are criminals, plain and simple.
We don't blame humans for bad behavior anymore. Whether it's ourselves doing it or whether it's somebody else, we want to blame an implement. We want to blame an implement. It has to be something outside of the human's fault. It's another thing happening.
Yeah.
And this has been a trend for decades, but it's at critical mass now. Like we're going to cross a point at some point where we cannot return to civility. I don't understand how we got this far. I just don't get it.
No, and we have to take responsibility and accountability for our own actions, and that's something that we've got to teach our kids about. We as parents have to teach that. We as older people in society,
but it can't be selective.
No, it has to be across the board.
It has to be uniformly required of everyone.
Yes, you can. Yes, like I have a video of Melina when she was like 2 or 3 years old, and she like hit Ellie with a doll. And
that wouldn't happen.
I said, "What did you do?" She's like, "I didn't do it. The doll did it."
Yeah.
I'm like, No. I said, "No, the doll didn't hit Ellie. Like, you did it. You." And I was explaining to her, this is a prime example of it. It's like, whether it was a doll or anything else, you did the action. You are responsible for it. You are apologizing to your sister. You did wrong.
Yeah.
But she was trying to blame it on the object. Like, as a 2 or 3 year old, I'm like, no. It's not the object. It's you. Like, I believe in that. Guns don't kill people. People kill people. Like, I'm sorry. That's how it is.
I always laugh too. Like, if the anti-gun folks, let's just say, humor them and create a world for them where they get what they want. All guns are taken from the citizenry.
Yeah.
Never pronounce that name or that word right.
Yeah.
But if they got that world, the only people that would have the guns, theoretically, would be law enforcement.
Yep.
Our military.
Yep.
And criminals.
Yes, exactly right. Yes.
And how would you maneuver in that world?
Correct. Exactly.
As a peace-loving person.
Yep.
How long do you think you'd last in that world?
Not long. That's the problem. And that's the problem.
There's an order to things and a balance to things. And it may be uncomfortable for you to hear that if you're anti-gun, but there's an order and balance. And if you remove the guns from law-abiding citizens, the people that have them are our law enforcement, our military, and criminals. They're not going to give theirs up.
No fucking way. There's an order and balance to life.
Yeah.
Like, this is why.
But it's an uncomfortable conversation for a lot of people 100%. Living on the extremes.
Well, and that's like the video I showed you before you were on the show. Like, all of these like woke, theories work until they're confronted with reality. Like, they were talking about the Nashville shooting. Like, who they call upon in 4 minutes. Those masculine men walked in there and took that shooter out in 4 minutes.
To do the dangerous hard work.
Because guess what? Their reality broke down. And when reality breaks down, right? When this, all this woke bullshit, the realities they've created, when that breaks down, the laws of the jungle apply. And you do need masculine men. You also need feminine women. And you need everything in between. But you cannot vilify masculine men. They built the country. They gave us the freedoms.
Or try to remove them. Or try to remove them from society.
Exactly. You cannot do that because they're called upon. They are called upon when the shit hits the fan. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I'll say it. And this is not a shot at feminism. This is not a shot at women. This is just a pure observation of reality. When the shit hits the fan in this country, who do they call? Mm-hmm. The masculine men to fucking solve the problem. That's it. To do the dangerous things.
Why does anyone think? Why can't anyone understand that there are people in our military, in our CIA, in our FBI that are out doing the dangerous work, covertly, keeping this nation safe.
Correct.
Things that the average citizen doesn't want to fucking hear, doesn't want to understand.
Exactly.
They just know that there are dangerous men, and I'm sure there's women involved too.
Yes.
But there are dangerous masculine people.
Yep.
Men and women,
Yep.
I'd venture to say,
100%.
out doing very covert and dangerous work on behalf of the flag that half the population doesn't want to put in their yard because they somehow associate that with MAGA.
Yeah, exactly.
It's unbelievable, man.
Exactly.
Wake the fuck up.
And that's the problem. People want to live in this reality they've created.
Their reality.
Exactly.
Not the reality.
Right, exactly.
Their reality.
It is their reality. And again, until that reality breaks down, which it will.
Because it's not real.
Again, like that video was, and that guy talking was the perfect explanation. And I sent it to my son. I said, this is why the world needs masculine men. Like, don't let anybody tell you otherwise. That means you still be a kind human being. You be decent. You treat everyone with respect. You love other human beings. You be a good man and a good human. But do not let someone tell you cannot be masculine, because sometimes we need to step up.
Amen. Well, the police officers that responded to this shooting.
Yeah. They went in there and put their life on the line to protect children.
Ain't nothing woke about the actions of those police officers.
Exactly. 4 minutes they were in there and they took out the shooter. They walked into gunfire.
They didn't ask the shooter, hey, can we have a discussion first on what you're feeling that caused you to do this?
Exactly. No.
Right?
You go in and fucking kill kids.
That's woke.
Right.
That approach is woke.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
But that didn't happen.
No, exactly.
And everybody's applauding now, as they should.
Exactly.
It's funny. Right. Woke seems to me to be a selective thing. Mm-hmm. Extremists use the woke mantra when it's convenient to fuck with people. Yeah. But in the time of reality their reality breaking down, at the time of dire need, it goes out the window.
Yeah. Like think of all these people that, like, I'm thinking of one person in particular that talks about woke stuff all the time on Instagram. And I'm like, I'd be curious if this person, if a fucking criminal comes in their house, they're going to sit there and try and talk to them, or they're going to call the fucking police. Right. Even though I've watched videos of them bashing the police.
Yeah, they want to cancel the police.
Right. But guess what? When someone comes in your house, you're going to sit there and do your, like, well, let's see, how do you feel today? Like, why are you committing this crime? What's making you feel this way? We need more of this. I'm like, no, you're going to call the fucking cops. That's what's going to happen. Because you want someone to come in and solve the problem because your reality broke down. And like, we should just accept that. Like, you can have those opinions, but also don't vilify the other side. Like, you can believe in all this other stuff. I agree. I'm not saying I'm not saying anything about gender equality. I'm a peace first guy.
Anytime something can be peacefully done, I know you too. You're saying, wait, if there's a peaceful solution, you go that way. But the moment someone's lives or property are in danger, it ain't peaceful anymore.
No, then the monster comes out, and that's what happens.
Exactly.
And that's what we have to accept. We have to accept that that's what we're here for.
Always a good time, partner. And this show will be going in a couple of different directions. We're going to continue to do this maybe on a weekly basis, and we also are going to be doing it live streaming very soon here. So we'll be transitioning our radio program that Rocco and I have been doing on Beaver County Radio here to the podcast, and we're excited about that. And more information on that very soon.
Yep.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again probably in a week.
Yeah.
Be safe out there.